33 university degreed photographers started at the same time. But within 5 years, only one hadn't changed careers. That doesn't make sense. And here's what makes even less sense. It wasn't the most talented who stayed. I know, because the one who did stay is me. Photographers don't leave the profession because they fail at photography. They love that stuff. And they leave because everything that they've been doing, despite the fact that it felt right, was never going to become a sustainable, profitable business. So if it's not the photography, what is it that actually determines who makes it? Hi there, Lens Legends, and welcome to another episode of the Portrait Profit Show, where we focus on the business side of photography. I'm your host, Jim Landers, your guide on the business side. The Portrait Profit Show is brought to you by Digital Pro Lab and Landers Photography School. For Digital Pro Lab, Amanda and her amazing team. What did I just do? There we go. There we go. So Amanda and her amazing team are going to make you look like a hero. Now, if you've heard the Portrait Profit Show before, you've heard me say this before, and you may think, well, I've heard that before. Well, it's because it's true. Amanda hires fantastic people. The people who work at Digital Pro Lab love what they do, and it's just by default that they make you look like a hero to your clients. They make it easy. The work looks fantastic. It's done quickly, and it's done at a fair price. digitalprolab.com. I'll put that on the screen real quick just so you have that URL, digitalprolab.com. Man, you're going to love the difference that Digital Pro Lab makes. And for Landers Photography School, there's two sponsors of this show. This is my company, and I teach both the photography side and the business side. On the business side, I help photographers build a business that supports the life that they want. If you'd like to reach out to me for a little more information or just have a free session, 15-minute session, just to talk about you and your goals, I'd be happy to do that. You see on the screen, there's a URL there. It's calendly.com/photo school /15MIN. You might want to do a screenshot of that because I'm going to take that off the screen. But that is a link to my calendar, and you can just put yourself on it, and I'll visit with you about you and your situation. So take advantage of that. I encourage you to make comments and ask questions throughout today's lesson. And I want you to do that in the comments section. Of course, speaking of the comments section, I want you to go there right now and enter in hashtag live. So that tells me that you're watching today on either Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or YouTube. And for those who are watching the replay, please comment hashtag replay. Now, if you know another photographer who could benefit from these shows, please take a moment to share the Portrait Profit Show with them just by clicking the share button on Facebook or tagging them on any of the other places that we are simulcast to. Photographers leave the photography profession for many reasons, but rarely because the work itself is too difficult. More often they leave because the effort they're putting in just doesn't lead to a sustainable career. They can see that clearly than pretty much anything else. They are working. They are improving. They have been all along. They're investing time into their passion, yet the results don't align with the level of effort they've been applying. So over time, this creates a growing disconnect between expectation and outcome. Progress appears to be within reach, but it never fully develops into something stable. So, as the gap continues, many begin to question whether a long term career in photography is realistic or whether their efforts would be better directed somewhere else. It is tempting to explain this in simple terms, such as someone has a lack of talent or a lack of discipline or a lack of commitment, but those explanations I haven't found to hold up. I mean, sure, there's exceptions, but for the most part, many of the photographers who are leaving the profession are capable. They're serious about their work and they are willing to put in the necessary time. The difference is not found in effort, it's not found in ability, it's found in direction. Let me show you what that uh, looks like. I notice that graphic is really small, but that's just showing how no matter how much of you're doing, everything is flatlining. This is where many photographers live. They're working hard, they're just not moving forward. With enough time and observation, a consistent pattern has become clear, and I want to share that with you. Photographers who leave are not making careless decisions. That's not what's going on. Maybe in hindsight they can see some that might fit that description, but that's not the norm. That's not a specific reason. In many cases, they are making thoughtful choices and directions they're taking, but they're they're making thoughtful choices that appear productive, at least in that moment. The challenge is that these decisions guide them towards outcomes that don't support a sustainable career. And at the time, they believe that they are on the right path, that they are doing the good things, the right things. In fact, there's often little to indicate that the path is wrong for them, but it is. It has to be if they're leaving the profession. This is precisely why failure in photography is so common. They often feel productive and in some cases even responsible. The problem is not that they are bad choices. The problem is that they are good choices, but they aren't the right ones for that individual photographer. So they don't lead where the photographer expects them to lead. In the sections that I'm going to be sharing with you next, I've got 4 chapters. The most common of these paths will be outlined, along with the reasons they consistently lead photographers away from the career they intend to build. So let's talk about this first one. This is the photography only road. Now, if you've listened to my shows or if you've taken my classes, you know that I use a lot of analogy when I speak. And one of the things I really like to use is going down the road in the right direction. There's lots of good roads, but there's really only a very few that are right for you. And it's hard to tell the difference or even impossible to tell the difference unless you know your destination. Because using that road, thinking about all the roads that are around your area, there's a lot of roads. They're all good. Yeah, sure, there's potholes and stuff in some of them, but for the most part, they are able to take you where you want to go. But that's the point. You've defined where you want to go. Most photographers have not done that. One of the most common paths photographers follow is built almost entirely around improving their photography. Time is spent learning lighting, refining posing, practicing composition, and developing editing skills. New techniques are studied and new equipment is purchased, all with the goal of creating stronger images with every single session they do. And there's nothing wrong with that approach. In many ways, it's where most photographers begin, and it reflects a genuine desire to improve and serve their clients well. The effort is real, and the intention is good. It shows care for the work and a commitment to growth. The challenge is not the effort, but where the effort is being directed. When most of the time and attention is placed on improving photography, well, very little remains for understanding how to build a business around it. As the quality of images improves, the business side often develops slowly, if at all. So, this is going to create a gap between the level of work being produced and the images, or excuse me, and the results being experienced on the business side. At first, the gap is, well, you don't see it, or it's difficult to see. Improvement is happening, and that improvement feels like progress because it is. The images look better than they did before. Your confidence is growing with every session you do. From both the photographer's point of view and anyone who's looking at it, at what you're doing from the outside, friends, family, clients, it appears that everything is moving in the right direction, that you're doing great. Over time, however, well, a pattern begins to take shape. Better images do not automatically lead to more clients. You know that. More clients do not automatically lead to better income. You probably know that too. And more effort does not automatically lead to a sustainable career. You definitely know that one. Photography skill is important, but it is only one part of what's required. Without a clear understanding of pricing, client relationships, positioning, sales, and how all of it supports the life that you want, the business remains underdeveloped. As a result, even strong work struggles to support consistent income or long-term stability. I mean, let's say someone was working out and they only worked out their upper body. They never worked out their legs. Would you start to notice something a little off after a while of them doing that? Yeah, no balance. Their body will get big and bulky on this in the top, and they'll have chicken legs to go along with that. Maybe you've seen someone who looks like that. Well, that's what a lot of your businesses look like. So this is often where photographers begin to feel stuck. Uncertainty increases. Doubt is taking hold. I mean, doubt's part of our life, period, all the time anyway. But man, does it get bad. They are doing what they believe they should be doing. Yes, they're thinking about quitting, but they are doing what they believe they should be doing. They have all along. They're improving their work. They're taking their role seriously. They love their clients. Yet the results do not match the level of effort being invested. The difficulty is that nothing about this path appears wrong because it isn't. Improving your photography is a good decision. It's responsible. It's expected. However, when it becomes the primary focus, it leads in a direction that does not support a sustainable career. Now, understanding this does not reduce the importance of strong photography. In fact, it clarifies its role. Photography is necessary. Learning, growing your photography is necessary, but it's not the business. When the majority of time and attention is placed on photography alone, the business remains underdeveloped. And over time, that imbalance makes it difficult to continue. Let's move on to the unsustainable pricing road. Unsustainable pricing. I'm sure many of you have experienced this one because another common path photographers follow begins with the way they price their work. These decisions are often made with good intentions. A photographer wants to be competitive, accessible. They want to appeal to potential clients. They may look at what others offer in their area, what they're charging, and they reflect on themselves, what maybe they have paid in the past. And they choose a number that feels appropriate based on that comparison, their current level of confidence, their current level of ability. And it's probably the worst thing you can do to come up with your price for a custom portrait photographer. Makes that point clear. If you're doing mini sessions, if you are uh, so you may think that mini sessions are custom. They're custom because you created it, but you're selling the same thing to everyone who buys the mini session. And by the way, too many of you do not understand what a mini session is. A mini session does not mean a short session. It means that you're doing the same thing for multiple people, unless you're making that offer. Now, whether you fill your calendar or not, that's a different story. But a mini session is not a short session. A short session is a short session. Mini sessions are something that you sell to many people, and they get the same environment or the same background, the same lighting. It's the same thing for everybody, and it makes it where you can have a lower price and more people come in. It's also used as a marketing tool. Some people's business model is all mini sessions, and that's fine. Others use it as a marketing tool. I use mine as a marketing tool for the most part whenever I did those. But these choices that you're making for your pricing are understandable, because I did it that way too. For several years, I did it that way. That type of pricing feels practical. It feels responsible. And you know what? It leads to bookings. That early response creates the impression that your pricing is right, or that it's at least working, because clients are saying yes and sessions are being scheduled. What you want is to be clear on what those numbers are, uh, what you need for them to be, to support what you're trying to do over time. A price can generate activity and still fall short of what is needed to sustain a business. You've either experienced this or you've heard other people experience this, where they are busy yet they are not profitable. I mean, the first business class I wrote was because of a post that someone named Sarah wrote, who I appreciate, and appreciate her for making that. I think she's a wonderful person anyway, but I appreciate her for sharing, and sharing that vulnerability about having a full schedule but no money in the bank when her camera broke. She couldn't fix it. She didn't know what to do. I think she probably knew her price was too low, but I also think that she was not really willing to change it. But she had to. That's why your pricing can generate activity, can keep you busy, but still fall short of what is needed to sustain a business. I have found that there are more photographers that have a price that is unsustainable than those who have a price that is profitable. It's pretty sad, but it's because they're doing comparison pricing. Worst way you can do it. One of the top reasons why businesses go out of business. Problem is, in the early stages, this distinction just isn't clear, because things are happening. Work is coming in, income is being generated, it's just not enough. And there is visible movement. It genuinely appears that progress is being made. As time passes, though, the structure begins to show its limitations. The amount of work required to maintain that income increases, while the available time to you're doing your systems, you're strengthening relationships, refining direction, that becomes more limited. Your effort expands, but your flexibility disappears. In many cases, the numbers do not support the outcome the photographer is working toward. Even with consistent bookings, the pricing structure does not provide the capacity to reach a stable and reliable income. So the result is a workload that continues to grow without producing the stability that's needed to be sustainable. If you guys are hearing something that you like so far, will you do me a favor and hit the like button or hit the love button? Let me know. I mean, how else am I going to know? I'm just talking to a microphone that's just right here, just barely out of reach. You can see my fingers right here. The microphone is right there. I'm talking to a microphone. I'm looking at a camera. I don't see you. The way you're able to tell me that you're watching is by hitting the like button or hitting the love button or going to the comments section and giving me a question or a comment. And if you haven't already, enter in hashtag live, letting me know that you're watching the show live. By the way, I can see a bunch of you have already done that already. So I appreciate you doing that. Wow, a bunch of you. How cool. Love it. All right. So pricing that's not sustainable creates a difficult position because you're raising when you realize that your price is too low and you raise your price, well, that's introducing uncertainty. You're uncomfortable with it, partially because you think your clients are just not going to come back. They're not going to work with you. You think your clients love you, but reality, you know that the people you attracted are more attracted to the dollar sign than they are to you. Now, if you're in a position where your price is too high, which is not the norm, but lowering prices may increase demand, but it also increases the volume of work required. Each adjustment might feel necessary, but none of those resolve the underlying issue. What makes this path difficult to recognize is that it often begins with positive signals. Therefore, you think you're doing it right. It feels right. Bookings validate your pricing. They do. Activity suggests progress. People looking at you think you're doing great. The photographer is doing what they set out to do, and in many ways, they feel like they're succeeding. The problem is not the presence of work. It's the structure beneath it that causes you to reach your goals. Pricing is not simply a number that's attached to a service. It determines whether the business has the capacity to support the life the photographer intends to build. Now, I know not everyone understands that concept, but if you listen to me long enough, you will get it just as clear as I do. Because when pricing is set without alignment, when it's just based on comparison and feelings, it creates a path that requires continued effort without providing a way to reach a stable and lasting outcome, meaning you go out of business. I know you don't want that. Two more roads that I want to share with you. The next is the wrong client. So I'll put that on the screen. Before I get into that, I want to remind you that every single one of these shows that I do, every single Monday, I have a handout for. And the way that you get the handout is by asking for it. You just send me an email, jim@portraitprofits.com, jim@portraitprofits.com. And you can also enter in hashtag handout in the comments section. And hit the like button, hit the love button whenever you hear something that you like. All right, so the wrong client road. Another path that leads photographers away from a sustainable career is shaped by the clients they work with. Now, there's some overlap. With the pricing of the previous one, you're going to attract some clients that aren't going to be right for you long term. This won't be. So therefore, probably should start off with trying to get the people that are right for you, or at least start from this moment. In the early stages, it's common to accept nearly every opportunity that comes along. Each inquiry represents a chance to create, to earn, to move forward, and saying yes feels like the responsible choice, especially when you're building momentum. I mean, that's the priority, at least at first, but it's the priority always. Building momentum, maintaining momentum. This approach often creates momentum. Sessions are booked, work is produced, the calendar's beginning to fill. That's exciting. From the outside, it appears your business is developing in the right direction, just like the other two I've mentioned. Because activity is visible and consistent, it's easy to assume that progress is being made. But just like the others, over time, the differences between clients begins to matter. Some clients place high value on photography. They understand its importance. They respect the process. They're willing to invest in it. Don't you want to attract those kind of clients? Yeah. Others approach it differently, focusing on price, convenience, or simply getting something completed. I'm not saying those are bad clients. I'm saying for custom portrait photographers, they aren't the right client. And that kind of client is going to hesitate when decisions need to be made or resist the level of involvement required to produce meaningful results. Both types of clients generate activity, but they don't lead to the same outcome. When a photographer consistently works with clients who are focused on price or focused on convenience, the effects begin to accumulate. Pricing becomes difficult to raise because of resistance. Expectations become harder to manage because the value of the work is just not understood. The time required to complete each project increases, while the return on that time remains limited. At the same time, the experience of the work begins to change. The sense of purpose and connection that once drove the work, well, it becomes less consistent. And none of it develops suddenly. It builds gradually. And because work continues to come in, it's often interpreted as progress. The calendar hopefully is full or filling. Images are delivered on time. Income is generated. But the underlying structure doesn't support long-term stability. So there's also the reinforcing effect. The way a photographer presents their work, how it's priced, where it's positioned, all these things and more affect and influence who is responding. Without clear direction, without defining who your ideal client is, the same type of client continues to appear, even when the relationship is not supporting the kind of business the photographer intends to build. Over time, the photographer adapts to those clients, the wrong clients, and the business begins to reflect their expectations. The issue is not that these clients are bad or wrong. The issue is that they are not aligned with the outcome the photographer is working toward. But if they haven't defined that yet, they can't tell the difference. A sustainable photography business requires alignment between the work being created and the clients being served. Without that alignment, effort continues, but progress is limited, just like the other roads. Let's get into the last of the roads, the paths that I'm going to share with you today. This is the busy but not growing road. There's a point in many photography businesses where activity becomes constant. Sessions are scheduled, images are being created and delivered, messages are being answered. There's always something that needs attention. The calendar's filling, workload is becoming steady. It appears your business is doing well. This level of activity, like it feels like progress because it requires effort. It requires consistency. You're using your time as wisely as you're able, without defining what your end result is supposed to be. Your work is being completed, responsibilities are being met. It reflects commitment, and it often looks similar to what a successful business is supposed to look like. Of course, activity and progress, they're not the same thing. A photographer can be fully occupied, fully busy, and still not be moving towards a sustainable outcome. Sure, the work may continue, but the underlying structure of the business is remaining unchanged. Pricing stays the same, the type of client stays the same, and the overall direction is not shifting. As a result, each week, each month, each year begins to resemble the one before it, with effort being repeated instead of compounded. This creates a situation where time is consumed by maintaining the current level of activity. And that leaves little room to evaluate or adjust the direction of your business. Decisions that could improve long-term outcomes, well, they're delayed because immediate responses are taking, or immediate responsibilities are taking priority. And over time, this pattern becomes self-reinforcing. The more work there is, the less time there is to change how that work is structured. So in this environment, it becomes difficult to distinguish between being productive and being occupied. Sure, tasks are completed, deadlines are met, obligations are fulfilled, but those actions do not necessarily move the business closer to your defined goal, mostly because people in this situation do not have a defined goal, not a long-term one. So without a clear connection between effort and outcome, progress becomes difficult to measure and even harder to achieve. The earlier roads that I mentioned, the photography only road, the unsustainable pricing road, and the wrong client road, all contribute to this condition. A focus on improving photography without building business limits growth. Pricing does not support long-term stability. Pricing that doesn't support long-term stability increases the volume of work required. And you don't want to do that, not custom photographers. Working with clients who are not aligned with the intended direction adds complexity and reduces efficiency. Together, these factors create a workload that demands constant attention without providing a clear path forward. Doesn't even give you time to think about it. Now, of course, this is going to, over time, lead to fatigue. Just going to be worn out, burnt out. The photographer continues to work until that point, but the sense of advancement, it just becomes even less defined. The effort required to maintain the business, it's increasing, while the results are probably remaining unchanged. And at that stage, it becomes difficult to see how the current path is going to lead to anything, at least anything different. So that underlying issue, it's not a lack of effort. You're working hard. It's the absence of a defined direction that connects daily activity to a specific result. You've got a lot of effort, but it doesn't accumulate in a way that builds a sustainable career. A photography business grows when effort is aligned with a clear objective. When that alignment is missing, activity fills the available time. I mean, we fill whatever it is that we have, or we use whatever it is that we have. If you had an empty room in your house, it wouldn't stay empty for long. Conversely, if you had extra money in the bank or extra money in cash, it probably won't last very long either, unless it has a specific destination in mind. If you've heard of Dave Ramsey, you've probably heard give every dollar a name. Tell it what it's supposed to do. So you know ahead of time what's going on. So recognizing the difference between being busy and actually moving forward, I mean, it's essential because it determines whether the work being done today contributes to the outcome that is intended for your future. Before I tell you what's coming up in future episodes of the Portrait Profit Show, I've got some closing thoughts for this show. When photographers leave the profession, it's rarely because they lacked the ability to succeed. In many cases, they were capable, they were committed, they were willing to put in the effort required. They improved their photography, they worked with clients well, stayed busy, they made decisions that appeared to be responsible, at least at that time. So, therefore, all that was really missing was direction. Each of the roads or paths that I shared in this lesson has something in common. They are built on choices that make sense in the moment. So, therefore, what you're doing doesn't feel wrong. You just know that it's not taking you where you need to go. You may not know where you need to go, but you know it's not taking you there. Improving photography is a natural place to focus. It's the part we like the best. Pricing in a way that attracts clients, low prices. It feels practical. It's what everybody else is doing. You're not really thinking that 19 out of 20 photographers are not going to be there next year. There'll be a lot more to replace them. So the numbers stay high. But people come and go in photography. So chances are when you're doing your comparison for your pricing, the odds are you're looking at someone who is charging an amount that is too low to be sustainable. And all you're going to do is follow in those footsteps. When it comes to working with clients, accepting available work does create momentum. Staying busy, well, it does reflect commitment. But none of these actions are wrong on their own. They look right. However, these paths do not automatically lead to a sustainable career that makes the life you want possible. They produce activity, you stay busy, but they don't usually produce the outcome the photographer intends to achieve. A sustainable photography business is not the result of working harder. I mean, you can see the patterns. It's not a result of working harder. It's the result of aligning decisions with a clearly defined objective. And I often refer to this as destination. There's a lot of destinations, but I call it destination. It's a category. That objective must go beyond creating strong images. It must include the kind of life the photographer intends to build and the role the business is playing to support it. When that direction is defined, when that destination is defined, the decisions begin to change. The decisions become easier. Time is allocated differently. Pricing is evaluated based on what it needs to support. Client relationships are approached with greater clarity. Effort becomes more focused. Progress becomes measurable. Without that direction, effort continues, but results remain inconsistent. With it, the same level of effort begins to produce a different outcome. So, it's not how hard a photographer works, but how that work is connected to a path that leads where you want to go. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. I want to tell you about the upcoming shows. As you know, the Portrait Profit Show is something that I do every single Monday. So let me tell you about the upcoming shows. In 1 week from today, on the second Monday of each month, I move the show to 6:30 in the evening. That allows people who can't watch it at noon to be able to watch it also. But it's also because I sometimes will bring in photographers or other individuals who I think can help us as photographers. And it's easier to get them in the evening than it is getting them during the day. And so this is an example of that. because in 1 week from today, and I'll put up that information here. There we go. I am going to bring in someone and interview them. This one is called Clarity in Your Numbers. Photographers are busy. We deliver meaningful work and we serve our clients well. Yet, we're uncertain about what our business is actually producing financially. So, you'll hear how one bookkeeper, who once worked as a photographer himself, brings clarity to the numbers behind the work. So photographers can move forward with confidence. They can reduce stress and make decisions that support the life they want. You're going to get to meet Jay Woolwine in 1 week from today. Put it on your calendar, 6:30, a week from today. That is on April, put that up one more time, 13th at 6:30 in the evening. So you get to meet Jay, good guy. And he's got a special deal for you that you'll appreciate. 1 week after that, April 20th at noon, this is titled What Photographers 7 Years From Now Told Me. Now, I did something, it's now a couple of weeks ago, that I didn't even know was possible. I went 7 years into the future. Now, I didn't know, I don't know what you would have done, but it's probably not surprising what I did. I sat down with photographers who are doing really well. Now, this is the year 2033 that I went to. And I am so excited to tell you what they shared with me. I'm going to share with you how they're running their business, what has changed in the meantime. Man, oh my goodness. It's something you're going to want to hear. Put it on your calendar, April 20th at noon. And I'm going to share with you what's going to be happening in the future. Yeah, I went to 2033. It's only 7 years from now, but there's some significant things you're going to want to know. Oh, you're going to love that. 2 weeks from today. And 3 weeks from today, on April 27th, this one is 5 principles every photographer should understand. You know, patterns appear again and again in photography careers. And working with the photographers that I work with, it makes, I just have a different perspective, a different way of looking at it. So that's why these patterns appear. This episode explores 5 powerful principles. You may have heard of all of them, or at least some of them. The first is the Dunning-Kruger effect, Parkinson's law, the Pareto principle, Hanlon's razor, and the Landers principle, and how they influence the way photographers think, how they focus their time and build strong businesses. Seeing how these ideas connect will help you create a photography career that lasts. And let me tell you about one more. This is on Monday, May 4th, 12 Business Truths. A photography business grows based on the decisions you make and the standards you set. These 12 business truths will help you attract the right clients and build a business that supports your life, your ideal life, the life you want this business to make happen. Put that on your calendar. Again, that is May 4th at noon, 12 Business Truths. Every Monday. Put it on your calendar. You're busy. Stuff is going to happen. You're going to forget. That's life. That's normal. That's human. But once you put it on your calendar, you're more likely to be here. Take a moment to consider the road that you're on right now and where it's leading you. Photographers who build lasting businesses are guided by clear direction because they've defined their destination. When your direction is defined, your effort begins to build the life you want. And that's what I'm here to help you with. Let me put on the count on the screen one more time how to put yourself on my calendar and it not cost you a dime. Look on the screen right now. The URL is calendly.com/photo school/15MIN. Again, takes you straight to my calendar. You put yourself on my calendar. You can see when I am available, and you put yourself at a time that you're available too. I want to thank you, Lens Legends. By the way, if you haven't watched this show before, you are a lens legend. That's what I call you. That's those who watch this show. You are lens legends. So I want to thank you, Lens Legends, for your time and attention here today. I always appreciate the time that you invest, the effort that you're making to build your photography business in the direction of your ideal life. I love seeing you succeed. Keep moving forward, keep growing, and I'll see you next Monday for Landers Photography School and Digital Pro Lab. This is the Portrait Profit Show, and I'm your host, Jim Landers. I look forward to watching you grow. And you know what? You are awesome. I really appreciate you. Bye for now.